I am also going to be talking about the issue of, mainly about the issue of our duty to rescue, and if there's time, which there probably will not be, about risks, his view about risks of harm. Now, over the course of his career, Professor Dworkin has been a powerful critic of consequentialist theories of law, political morality, moral duties, and personal ethics. In this manuscript, he offers a unified alternative approach relying on the notion of respect for human dignity, these two requirements that people have discussed already of self-respect and authenticity. And according to Dworkin, these two principles of dignity do triple duty. I think this is a very ambitious claim, and I think perhaps too ambitious. First, they explain as a matter of personal ethics how I should live. Second, they elucidate the rights that individuals have against their political community. And third, they account for the moral duties we owe to one another. Now, I agree that the principles of dignity he identifies may have a valuable role in those first two domains, but I'm much more skeptical about their ability to explain and ground interpersonal moral duties. I think they sometimes fail to justify the non-consequentialist positions that Professor Dworkin wishes to endorse, and even when they do more clearly entail specific moral duties, the scope of those duties that they justify is often significantly weaker, or in some cases significantly stronger, than many non-consequentialists would endorse. So let me turn to the issue of duty to rescue as an illustration of this issue. So he says, a mere failure to help someone cannot normally be interpreted as showing lack of respect for the objective importance of their life. I don't have the same duty to help someone else's children as I do to help my own, but I can't completely ignore the claims of strangers. So he identifies three factors that are relevant to the scope of a duty to rescue. The first is the metric of harm to the victim. But here he has a very high threshold, and Professor Appia referred to this. I have a prima facie duty to help a stranger only when he's in danger of losing his life or becoming incapable of functioning as a normal human being. Now, I do think this may well follow from Professor Dworkin's principles of dignity, but it's awfully restrictive. Suppose I know a person in danger risks a broken leg, but nothing worse, and I could save him with no risk of injury to me and no interference with any of my important life plans. Shouldn't I have a moral duty to act? And yet Professor Dworkin seems to say, I do not. Or suppose the harm is merely some form of temporary emotional distress. I see that a snake that I happen to know is harmless is terrifying a child. I could easily pick up the snake and toss it out of sight. Shouldn't I do so? And without going into the details, I think it's quite possible for a non-consequentialist theory, unless one's a very strong libertarian, to be able to justify a stronger duty of rescue than he identifies here. The second factor he mentions that's relevant to the scope of the duty to rescue is a metric of cost to the rescuer. Now here he says, the rescuer can count as a serious cost whatever he takes to be a serious interference with his important personal projects, even if no one else would view the interference as a serious cost. So Dworkin gives this example following Scanlon of someone who is building a temple to his god. And so I'll play off that example a little bit. Suppose that the individual considers it quite important to finish building that temple by noon today rather than 2 minutes past noon because his god will otherwise be intensely displeased. Well, presumably he need not stop and save the child from the terrifying snake or from the broken leg or maybe even from a life-threatening injury, given the importance that this would hold for the interference with his life plan. So again, a problematic conclusion. Now, the third factor he mentions actually, in a sense, cuts in the other way. It supports a stronger duty to rescue than I think can be justified or is necessarily justified on non-consequentialist grounds. And this is the factor of what he calls impact or confrontation. So Professor Dworkin says, if a person in need of help is a particular identifiable person, I have a stronger duty. And if the need to rescue arises here and now, rather than at some physical distance or in the future, then again, I have a stronger duty. He says we would display a callousness that mocks any pretended respect for humanity if we were to ignore the impending death of a person who's dying right in front of us. Now, he also points out this factor has puzzled economists, and they think about the example such as a cave-in that traps a miner, and he says, we expect the community to spend whatever it takes to then rescue the miner, but this could be much more than we expect the community to spend ex ante on mine safety to prevent cave-ins or other dangerous accidents from happening in the first place. And I think he's correct that that's how many people feel about these examples, but I think non-consequentialists should be puzzled by this phenomenon as well. The only actual argument he gives for giving great weight to the identifiability of the victim is that we shouldn't ignore the natural responses that a respect for life provokes in these kind of cases. But I guess my question would be, well, why do we give such enormous weight to that natural response? If, for example, we could save 5 miners from being trapped and killed in the first place, for every 1 trapped miner, we spend an enormous sum to rescue after we discover that he has been trapped. It may just be a failure of moral imagination that we're not treating their lives with comparable respect. And one further thing I'd say about this particular argument about confrontation, it's not clear to me how this natural response argument actually follows from the principles of dignity. So I'm not even sure that internally that it works as well as an argument. Now, I do concede that our intuitive responses to the trapped miner examples, that is our intuitive response, that we do have this understandable emotional reaction. Psychologists have empirically verified it. Maybe evolutionary biologists can give an explanation of why we might have this. But again, it seems to me to confront the Humean question of, well, that's the fact, but why should we, as a matter of value, rely on that fact for our moral judgment here? I actually want to tie this to a comment Professor Dworkin made, an interesting comment Professor Dworkin made this morning, where he mentioned the analogous problem, though his analysis was quite different. He asked, should we really be spending a huge proportion of our healthcare resources on people in the last months of their life, when those dollars could save so many more lives if invested in earlier prevention and treatment? And he suggested very plausibly that in a hypothetical insurance market, we would probably allocate these dollars very differently. But notice the same could be said about the trapped coal miner. In a hypothetical insurance market, we might well choose to invest much more in prevention of collapses of coal mines in the first place than in rescues of identified victims. And finally, notice that one reason we do spend too much on end-of-life care is this factor of confrontation. Your dying mother or grandmother is in the hospital. You want her to get the best possible care. You don't want a government death panel to tell you what to do. It's this notion of confrontation that I think is doing some of the work here. But again, does our natural feeling that society owes a special duty to improve the health of the identifiable person, does it really provide a convincing basis for saying that society does indeed owe such a duty? Now, the other topic I could talk about, if I had more time, was the issue of unreasonable risks to others, unintended harm. Again, he uses a somewhat similar metric of seeing the extent to which the interference with the life plan of the potential injurer is comparable to the interference with the life plans of the potential victim, but we run into similar problems. What if the potential injurer is driving to the location of the temple ceremony and needs to speed to get there? That doesn't seem to be a sufficient reason for imposing even very, very low, even if he's not speeding, even low-level risks of injuries to others. So again, I'm not sure that the emphasis on interference with life plans works. So in conclusion, I guess I'd say that the this ambitious effort to have a unified, non-consequentialist account and to have these principles of dignity be the foundation of that account, I think runs into significant problems when we apply it to interpersonal morality. Thanks.